We got it approved for 43 units. And then the project just wasn't good enough. And I got stuck. And this is where I said in the intro, I'm going to be a little bit more personal because I had a capital constraint. So I need to push forward and get something approved because it's really hard to attract and to get capital into a project if you're not sure of what you're going to be able to do.
Have you been thinking about buying your first rental property for some time, or do you already own a bunch of properties? Well, fellow investors, you found the right location to listen and learn from others' successes. Welcome to The Very Real Estate Effect with your host, Axel Monsage.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. Today, it's a solo episode. I'm going to go a little bit more personal, and I kind of want to bring you kind of behind the scenes on one of the big projects I've been working on that I'm sure some of you have been following because we had a delay of about 18 months. And I just want to explain what I've learned from it so you don't make those mistakes. So for those who've been living under a rock or not yet following this podcast much, about 2.5 years ago, I bought some land and well located, a downtown location in a second or third tier city, and to do a construction after having optimized and redeveloped in some ways some projects in Montreal. I wanted to build, and so I wanted to minimize my risk. So I bought land with a project already approved on it. It was a 16 unit. So all I had to do was to go to permit and then build it. And so I thought, this is straightforward and I can do this. So I did. So I got my permit. Took 8 months to get the permit for an approved project. FYI, it always takes more time than you think. And by the time I got my project permit, my building permit, developed a bit of a relationship with the city, and the city said, well, we're going to change the zoning in all of this area, and you could probably get more density. Okay, great news. Thank you for letting me know that once I got my permit, but hey, timing does what it does. And then at the same time, my neighbor came to see me. She had a commercial triplex and a fairly large parking lot. And she said, hey, I'd like to sell. So put the two and two together. I put my neighbor's land under contract. I started to work with the city. So that takes us to the summer/fall of 2023. And in order to move forward and design a new version of the project, we need to know what is it that we can build there. So we refer to the zoning. So zoning, for those who aren't aware, is basically what decides what you're allowed to build in a certain place. So imagine taking a map of the city, and it's not perfect squares, okay? It's random kind of shapes according to a few variables actually on land. Sometimes it's a city block, sometimes it's it takes also topography and all that. And the zoning decides what you can build. So how many floors, how many units, the minimum and maximum density, and also the uses that you can have. Is it commercial? Is it residential, industrial? And then within each category of commercial, then there's different subsections. There's certain commercial activities that you can have and some that you cannot have. And in the zoning, it also regulates what kind of use you can have in which proportions. So under our previous zoning, technically it was 2 floors. And we had to have a commercial ground floor. So that poses a set of constraints. Now, the project evolved. And again, in the fall of 2023, we sat down with the city because just saying hey, propose something a little bit more ambitious isn't enough for me to go see my architect to say, design something a little bit more ambitious. His first question is, okay, how many floors? What are we doing? What kind of project? And so on and so forth. So we met with the city, and on 2 occasions, about a month and a half apart, and we proposed a project. We proposed a facade, originally 8 floors, and it was refused. And then We tried 7, and then it settled on 6 floors. Okay. So now at least we know how high we can go, but that took a 2 to 3 months process. And during this time, I'm paying for architectural fees and so on and so forth. Having zoning is a great way to create value. Now, if you buy land that isn't zoned for the intended use, you're taking a risk because you're buying, being confident that you can change the zoning from, let's say, a commercial use to a residential use. Okay, but what if you can't change it? What are the implications for you? So going back to the fall of 2023, the city at that point said, look, we're entirely redoing the zoning. We just suggest that you wait for winter 2025. That's 18 months. I repeat, a year and a half to wait where, well, the city itself doesn't really know what's going to be done. They have to go through that entire zoning change process to basically redesign what they want the city to look at 10, 15, 20 years from now. And they're going to set this for the next, basically 30 years. So I just couldn't wait. I just thought that's impossible because as a developer, you have a capital constraint. Like, I don't have all the money in the world. At some point, this needs to move forward because whether I'm building or not, I'm still paying for insurance, city taxes, and all the development fees. So at that point, I said, look, we were pretty confident we can get about 6 floors. We worked with the previous zoning and we went and we proposed a 6-floor project, residential, upstairs, a full floor of commercial, almost 7,000 square feet of commercial space, and an underground parking lot for 19 or 20 spots. And so there's, again, a cost attached to this, architectural, design, and so on. Went to the city and submitted, and then the city, in order to process it, they take in fees, right? I think within a day from the city, I got about $45,000 worth of invoices to pay for the city to consider taking the file and going it and taking it through the PPC moi process. Now, we went through it. Go back to the old episodes. I've talked about this before. We got it approved for 43 units, and then the project just wasn't good enough. And I got stuck, and this is where I said in the intro, I'm going to be a little bit more personal because I had a capital constraint, so I need to push forward and get something approved because it's really hard to attract and to get capital into a project if you're not sure of what you're going to be able to do. I was confident. The city told me zoning change, you can get more density, but on paper, for anybody else who's looking at this from an investment standpoint, there's a risk. And the risk is the city and is not knowing what we're going to be able to do. Last week, we had a developer who was here talking about this very point, about the uncertainty there is when it comes to the city approving what is going to be able to be built on that land. I'm digressing. So I went through the process. We got a 43 unit project approved. Now last fall, so fall 2024, I went back to the city and said, look, we'd like to do a little bit less commercial. We'd like to add a little bit more parking. The city came back and said, wait for winter. You might be happily surprised. And I've been following up. I've been going to the town hall meetings for municipal council. And yet finally, yes, beginning of 2025, the new zoning was finally revealed. Plan d'urbanisme, plan du centre-ville, so on and so forth. All great news, because now it's 6 floors plus a bonus 2 floors if we're going to do some affordable. We will do some affordable. So now we can go 8 floors. There's also other constraints that have changed. We don't have to have a full commercial ground floor. We can have other uses with a certain proportion. So now we can add some parking, we can add some residential, we can make a different use of the commercial of the ground floor. Great news for us because over there's already a bit of vacancy on the commercial space. So we want to do a little bit street side. We'll add some small businesses, but we don't want, 7,000 or 10,000 square feet of commercial space. It's just too much and it's harder to finance. And the project, therefore, has greatly improved. Now, where I want to kind of roll back is that as a developer, I was pressed for capital. To get capital, I need to finalize the project. To finalize the project, I need to know what I'm going to be able to build for sure, because then I need to remove the risk inherent to the city's approval. And while I was in the mix of it, I didn't always realize. And, now thinking back, yeah, maybe in 2020, in the fall of 2023, I should have, gathered enough capital to be able to wait 18 months. But that's what I would have done knowing how the story ends, which is right now. And I didn't know that at the time. And it was actually really difficult for me. And I've shared a lot on the podcast. So the point isn't for me to stand here and say how difficult it was, is for me to share my mistakes so you don't make them. I've learned, I've made some really good hits. I've taken some more questionable decisions. And I've always said in the podcast that I'd be transparent about it. So again, I can make all the mistakes and take the risks so you don't have to, whatever scale you're at. And so what I've learned, and I want to share with you on this, is that if you are waiting for zoning, if you have an uncertainty with regards to what you're going to be able to do with a project, I'm not saying stop. I'm just saying consider all options, because in a lot of cases, time will actually be on your side, in the sense that the more time goes, the more naturally the land takes in value, but the more clarity you'll get on what you can do with that land. I had done an episode in the past on what does highest and best use mean. That's also connected to it, because for zoning, ideally you want to go highest and best use. So now going back to where I was last winter, to where I was last fall, to where I am now, where now we clearly have the new zoning and it's really good for us. It gave us the time to also tie some other partnerships with academic institutions close in the area, i.e. across the street and 600 meters away. And the most important part is that no matter how hard you work, zoning doesn't move any faster. What can move faster is how well you prepare for what's coming after you get it. And I know that sentence sounds easy. You can't make zoning go faster, but what you can influence is how ready you are for what's coming after. And I kind of did that because I was like, well, I can work on the project knowing what I'll know then, and I kind of did, but I also realized how much of an effect it had on me, because for 18 months, I thought I failed. I failed because I wasn't able to develop. I failed because I wasn't able to take it to highest and best use, and it was hard personally. It was also hard financially, and it was really hard personally because, again, I thought I hadn't been able to achieve what I wanted to. And it's not a question that I hadn't achieved it. I just hadn't in my hands all the information I needed, and I can only prepare what I can control, and I can prepare for what comes next once I have the information. And then when I realized that, I was like, okay, so we have yet to determine exactly how big the box is going to be, but once I have the size of the box, what are the next steps? So I redid the proforma thanks to some help. I have a fantastic co-developer on this. Work the proforma with, yes, a few assumptions, but 95% of the project is on that sheet of paper. There's a few small tweaks, maybe a little bit more area, maybe a little bit of that, but all in all, we know what we're going to be able to do. So redo the proforma, build the presentation, model the returns, because attracting capital, it's about, I'm passionate about the development, but for people who come in and join in, is because they want to make a return on their money. They want to contribute to housing. They want to redevelop this area of town, but they're looking for their money to make more money for them, which is normal. And so being able to model the returns, being able to model 90 or 95% of the project, being able to present it properly to investors actually makes a huge difference, even though I wasn't sure exactly how many floors I was going to be able to do. And then that number of floors, how many exactly unit it was going to translate into, given the unit mix. Are we doing a lot of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and so on and so forth? So now again, now that I know what I know, maybe I would have taken an 18-month break on this project, get enough capital, weather the storm. But it's always easy to, to sit down and have some armchair comments about what it's like to be in the trenches when you're not in the trenches and when you didn't roll up your sleeves and take some financial risks like that. So again, I'm sure there's some of you who have a project, but you're waiting for some variables that you don't control. Fine, it is what it is. Model your project as best as possible. Make a note at the bottom of some of the assumptions and some of the variables that still need validation once you have them. The second thing is rebuild your proforma. Okay, build your proforma. Well, I should really say finalize your design as much as you can. Build your proforma and then model the returns. The design changes, the proforma is going to change, the returns might be a bit altered, and that's okay. And most people can understand that. But at least you're working with what you have at the time. Once you have the validation, once you have your new zoning, then you can make those assumptions firm, and then you can revalidate and alter. And what I've learned from this is that I could have been kinder to myself. And I'll let that sink in. Like, I really thought I had failed. I thought I couldn't make it work. I thought I was a lousy developer. And I wasn't. I actually took huge risks. And by the way, with the new zoning, like, I can't really announce what the project is going to be like because it's still in the pipeline. We may be up to upwards of 100 units. So I bought the land for 16. We may end up at upwards of 100 units. And as soon as I can share more information, I will. I can't yet. So the point I want to share with you today is that you may be working on some project that you don't control all the variables. That's normal. You took a risk. Work on what you can. Take the necessary steps to get validation and confirmation of all those variables that you don't all control, i.e. zoning, and then do your best, but be kind to yourself. If the project doesn't work yet, it's not because you're a lousy investor. It's just because you have a hard time making and firming the assumptions that allow you to build a proforma that's realistic, that makes sense, where the returns are good enough to attract capital. Because when I look at the returns that we have now, they're actually very good to attract capital. And I'm very proud of the project that we're in the process of designing. So when you're in the early stages of development, be mindful of what's truly within your control. The rest, you got to make assumptions. The rest, you've got to work with what you have. And it's okay in a project like that, in a long-term development project like that, to kind of use maybe some waiting periods, because it's rush, and then you submit, and then you wait for 3 weeks. And then you go back at it, and then you got some more information, and use that waiting time to maybe refine your vision, find another partnership to do, improve how you present the project, work on financing, alternatives. There's still things that you can do even while you're in those waiting periods. And that's something that I took advantage of. And now I realize even more how that has helped me, because as I couldn't work on this, I worked on that instead. And that's been really beneficial. Lastly, it always helps to be on good terms, in good collaboration with the cities. The cities, in most cases, are staffed with well-meaning, well-intentioned people. They want to support development. They don't always want to go about it in the same way that developers do, but you've got to work hand in hand and do a good partnership. It's like every relationship. You can just agree to disagree, and then you still have to come to the table and find a happy solution that fits for everyone. Foster those relationships. They really go take you far. So in opening up here a little bit of what I went through, I realized that I went through a tough period because of that project, because I put a lot of pressure on myself, because I've taken some big financial risks. We will end up with a project that's even better than what we thought, and I'm super proud of it. It took more time. It's a learning process. But what I'm super proud of, and it was a friend who told me this, is that no one can ever remove the learning experiences that you made and that you got. And everything that I've learned the hard way, the proud way, over the last 2 years, I will apply to every other project that I'm going to do afterwards. Because hold on, This is just the first one. And I keep joking. Imagine now when I develop just the building that's the shape of a rectangle on a flat land. Oh my God, it's going to seem easy. And now I know how to go about it. And that I'm really proud of. I can't thank enough some of the people that have helped me along the way. Some of you will recognize yourself. Some of you, I'll let you know next time I see you, because I'm extremely grateful to have gotten that help. On this note, I invite you to keep researching your market, keep checking the zonage. If you take some good calculated risks, eventually it'll pay off. You just have to determine whether that's part of the investment profile that you want to follow. Follow your dreams, get educated, and in the meantime, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.